the configuration for how we will configure it for Git, essentially for Azure DevOps. We can also extend our learning to GitHub, because we have already seen how it is working with Git and what are the different commands which are present inside Git. We can actually go ahead and also extend our learning, and because it's all the same environment, so we can go ahead and install Git as well and use what our knowledge is with GitHub. So essentially both are the same set of commands. That's why it will be used with exercise. So in order to install GitHub, what you need to do is you can go ahead and say install Git in your local box and go to Git downloads, Git SCM, source control management of Git, depending upon your OS version. You can go ahead and download that particular Git and install it on your local machine. Once you have installed this, useful link which will help you is this guy. Let's look at this. I have installed Git on my machine. So whenever you're done with installing Git on your machine, what you can do, one is you will install Git on your local machine. One is you will install Git on your local machine. Once Git is installed, what you need to do, you will be pushing your code from local to the GitHub. What is GitHub? Just like Azure DevOps, which will store your repository, GitHub also can store your repository. So what you need to do, just like you created an account in Azure DevOps, you can go ahead and create an account in GitHub. It's free. It's very famous. So you can just go to GitHub and go ahead and create a account, saying you need to sign up and create a personal account. Once you're done with signing up, you will be given access to GitHub and you can have a repository there. The way we created a repository in Azure DevOps, that's the same way you'll go ahead and create a repository in GitHub. So once you have a repo in GitHub, that is where you can start pushing. So you'll be having a repo in GitHub. Now you can start pushing code from your local to the GitHub. To do that, how do you do it? That's where that page would be helpful, essentially. If I just go to any of my directories, I'll not push content, I'll just show you what happens. So I just opened, okay, not GitHub, not this. I will open Git bash at a particular location. So what is Git bash? That is where you will enter Git commands. So I'll just say right click, open Git bash here. So Git bash here, that command. So essentially what will that do? It will go ahead and open Git prompt at this location. So you have opened Git at this particular location. This is what is something which you will get once you installed Git on your local machine. So you just right click, and once you are looking at it, looking at the options, you will be having Git bash, and this is what is the Git bash. This is how you connect to the GitHub from the Git which you installed locally. So you have a particular set of commands which you will execute, which are publicly available. which I regularly use because remembering all these things is not straightforward. So once you create your new repo inside the Git repository, all you will do is you will start punching in these commands. Git init will initialize the local directory in the Git as a Git repository. I just will say Git init. So everything went fine. It did not crash or is not complaining me of any errors. So I went ahead and Git init. So what it will do, it will go ahead and add a .git file to my folder. If it is there, it will re-add it and initialize my repository. My folder would not have it, but once I say Git init, I'll get the Git folder here. This is the same folder you get when you're working with Azure DevOps repository as well. As we are on the same page, I'm just showing you so that you can easily work with GitHub as well as Azure DevOps. So you have two repositories which you can easily work with. It is just the same commands, right? So I'm showing you that. Once I have Git init in place, what is the next thing? It's all copy paste. I need to add the files to the local repo. What is local repo? What is global repository? Remote repository. Something which is in my box is the local repo, which is on the remote repository is my remote repository. First, I need to add to my local repository. All of this is not required when I'm using Visual Studio. Now you understand the pain when we work with Git. There are too many commands which we need to do before we actually go ahead and push things to local repository as well as global repository. How do I add? I'll say git add dot. It is done adding my changes to the local repository. That is what, without any errors, it essentially has added it to master. That is the default branch you have. So I have added the things to the master. Now I need to commit the things to my local repository. What will I do? Git commit. What is the Visual Studio option? You have commit all, which is just a button. So without Visual Studio, these are the number of things you need to do. You have git commit. I'll go ahead and say paste. So you have committed onto the master. Nothing to commit because I have already worked on it and it is already a Git repo and it is using it. So that is why nothing is there to commit. But essentially, once you have something to commit, you will be getting the prompt saying that all of the files which are present inside your repository, inside your add, are being committed to the local repository. You'll get that prompt. As my repo which I am working on is already a Git repo, you are not getting that command, and essentially you are not getting any errors as well, just because it is a Git repo which is working fine. Once I have added it to my local repo, what is the next thing which I need to do? I need to commit it to the global repository. This is where, once you have your global repository, you will be having a URL. Like we have the URL for our Azure repository. Let me just open Azure. So if you just look at the repos, if you say clone, you get a URL here. I'm just copying this URL because it's not completely visible, right? So you'll get a URL, which again is _git. As I said, we are working on Git repository, even though we are on Azure DevOps, it's a Git repo. In the same way, you will get a URL inside GitHub. Once you create a repo, just like this, it would be .git. That is the repository you want to commit to. You should copy paste that URL and add it to this command. What is this command? I'll not execute this because we are not completely looking at Git. It is just some extra information which would be useful for you if you are working on some projects which are dealing with Git. So you have git remote add origin, git remote add origin. Then you need to give the URL which you are where your repository is present. This is what should be executed after you are added it to your local repository. I have added it to my local repository by saying commit. Now I'll commit it to my global repository. So once I'm committed to the global repository, I'm just verifying whether everything went fine or not by saying -b. Now what I'll do, I'll say push. What is the initial command which we give? We'll push. The button which we get in Visual Studio is push. So I'll push the content to my remote repository. So that is what I'll do. That's how these are the steps which are involved in adding your content to Git repository. So if you just, that's the URL. It's official. It's from Git. Whatever I've spoken is from the documentation of GitHub. So just use that URL whenever you're working with Git directly instead of working with Azure DevOps. Instead of working with Azure DevOps, if at all you have a project wherein they are using Git, it's very straightforward. You already know what is what in Git. All you need to do is stitch things in place. So this is how you do it. Your all Git commands are present inside those in that documentation, which is present in Git documentation. So you can go ahead and use it. That's pretty much about this. So if at all we want to touch base on something else, we'll come back to it. Next, going to the boards. Yeah. Any comment? Yeah, I said I'll go on mute. So essentially, when we're working with any software project, there is something called as SDLC lifecycle. So what we're looking at now is this part. When you go to boards, which is present here, I did not have this. Let me just see if I can delete it. Yeah, that's how it looks like initially. So once I have, I'm at this node of boards. You see new item. You get a few things which, if at all you're not familiar with Agile, a few things which are pretty much Agile specific. You have epic, you have feature, you have task, you have user story, you have test case, bug. You should be familiar with it. But these are the terms which are pretty much in Agile. So what we are looking at now is how Agile works. What is backlogs? There is a node which Microsoft gave me. I can create my own product backlog. What is backlog? What is a burndown chart? So you're seeing a burndown chart here. So what is a burndown chart? New, active, resolved, closed. So you're seeing a burndown chart. What is a sprint? Because you have a sprints node here. What is a board? Because you have boards node here. So there are many things which are to do with Agile. So you have multiple things which are pretty much Agile specific. Before coming to Agile, let us just see what are the methodologies which are present in a real-time project, and how do we actually go ahead and work with a software development lifecycle. So what is software development lifecycle? There are multiple things within SDLC. So any software engineer who is experienced would have worked on all of these lifecycle events or all of these lifecycle periods. So it all starts with whenever you want to develop a software, your company wants to develop a software. It all starts with planning. So essentially, your number one, which is planning, they will plan first of what needs to be done to develop this particular software, and what are the things which will be involved, what is the planning, what are the people who will be working with us, um, what is the architecture of this software at hand, how many teammates, and what would be the process that we will follow. All of that will go inside the planning period. All of this is what happens inside the planning period. They will plan on what needs to be done. Once they have planned it, they will analyze the code, or they will analyze not the code, they will analyze the problem at hand. If it is a retail project, what is the kind of things, what is the software that we are going to develop, and what will this software address? So, like if you are building a shopping cart application, we are all familiar with Amazon or Flipkart. We go there, we cart. And once the things are added to the cart, I can go ahead and check out and pay for the cart, whatever I have shopped for. I can pay for those items and get those items delivered to my doorstep. So all this is pretty familiar to us. Let us think that is the kind of application which we are building as part of this requirement. We will do analysis on what are the kind of products that this retailer sells. Are they mobiles, or they cameras, or are they apparels, or what is it? What is it that this retailer sells? We'll do some good analysis before we actually go ahead and do anything else. That is what happens in the analysis phase. They will analyze what the customer is using or what the customer is working on. Then they will go to the design phase. What is the design phase? So this is where they design the architecture of your application. So what they will do in this phase is they will go ahead and design for the entire product. All your designing and your architect and your technical lead, everyone comes in this phase, and they will have multiple discussions with the client or the customer before before finalizing on a particular design. So that is what happens in the design phase. They'll start designing for the application. Once that is done, they'll go ahead with implementations. This is where, apart from architect and technical lead, this is where in the implementation phase is where more people join in, like your software engineers, your senior software engineers, your trainees, your technical lead. All of the coding happens in this phase, in the implementation phase. So your coding and your stuff and team meetings and planning, all of that happens in the implementation phase. I will start coding for what I have designed. I have designed something in my previous phase, and once I'm done with designing, that's where I'll actually start and make my hands dirty, and I will start coding for my requirements. So once the coding begins, that is where you will be having your team working on the raw code and checking in the code to the repos which we spoke about in the previous sessions. So they'll start working on the code and checking in the code to the repos and keep on improving the code as and when the time goes by. That is what happens in the implementation phase. Once the code is developed, it has to be tested. So the QA will come in at this phase. What they will do, they'll go ahead and test your code and validate whether whatever is developed is up to the mark, and there are no bugs in what is being delivered to the customer. All of that would come inside my testing and integration phase. So you will be having multiple areas which you will be promoting your code to. First, you will be having something like a staging environment, wherein you will be checking in your code. Once the staging environment, your code is validated and everything looks fine, that's where you will go ahead and promote it to next environment. Let's say it is a dev environment. That's why we will promote it to the dev environment. You'll be having multiple environments in which your code gets promoted. In any project, we will be having multiple environments. So then we will be promoting it to dev environment, then QA environment, then PPE, your pre-production environment, or some people will call it IAT, your integration acceptance testing environment, IAT, your IAT environment. And then finally, if all the validations go fine even in IAT, then we will go live. What is the live environment called? Production environment. That is where you will go ahead and deploy your code inside the production environment. So these are the phases in which your code will go through before it actually goes live. It goes to the production environment. So here finally it goes to the production environment. Once it is in the production environment, can we forget about our code or the project after that? No, that's where the actual pain starts, because now the live issues begin. And that is where you will go into the maintenance phase, the final phase of your SDLC. That is what is the maintenance phase. So you go ahead and maintain the code now. That is, maintaining the code essentially means you are maintaining the production environment. Whatever is live, if it has issues, you will be deploying patches so that the issues are resolved. And there are no huge business losses which the customer is incurring because of what is happening in the live environment. So that is what will be happening inside the maintenance phase. You will maintain your software which you have deployed to production. And this carries on. For the next iteration, you will again plan what else can be included in the project. You will do analysis on it. You will design for the what else, because products keep on evolving. They keep on adding new features. So your product, once it is in production and it is famous, you never stop building the project or adding more enhancements to the project. You never stop that. So you keep on going through these phases. So again, you'll go ahead and design for it, again implement it, again test it, and then release it to production. This is a never-ending cycle. As long as your product is good, in good shape, and it is being used by the customers, it will be always going through all of these lifecycle events, all of the SDLC lifecycle events. That's pretty much about your SDLC lifecycle events. There are multiple processes which you will follow when you are working on SDLC. One of the process is Waterfall Model. So if I just search for that. So one of the process what you have to do SDLC, the software development lifecycle, to deal with that. One of the processes which you have is Waterfall Model. What is Waterfall Model? What do you see on screen? It says everything should be like a waterfall. It looks, if you just look at this, if you spill some water here, it would come step by step until it comes here to the maintenance phase. All of the phases, what we saw now in the SDLC, are laid out as a waterfall scenario, or laid out as a waterfall steps. What Waterfall Model says, unless and until I am done with analysis, forget about system design. Unless and until I am done with analysis, I will never go to the design phase. And once I am done with the design phase, then only I will start coding. Once I am in coding, if you come to me with any new changes, I will not change it, because you should have come to me in design phase itself. I have already designed for the application and got your approval. You already approved that. That is the client. So we have taken the client's approval in the design phase. But can there be any changes after client approves a particular design? Yeah, he's a human, and there can be mistakes, and he might have forgot including some things. So what will happen if there are any changes from the design phase? Then essentially you are coding, and you are 10 days down the line coding, and within another 20 days, it is a 30-day um, sprint. Say it is just an example. It is 30-day iteration. That is, each month you are planning to release something, and after 10 days, client comes back and says that I need some things to be changed. If the client comes back and says that some things have to be changed, then a waterfall model will say I'll not accommodate it because it is you who approved it in the design phase. Now I'll not change it. I'll code for what you have approved and I'll release it. Come back to me next month in next iteration when I am in the design phase again next month. Then come back to me. Then only I will change. It is rigid. Waterfall model says I will not change any of the previous phases. If at all, if at all, if at all there are any changes, you have to come back to me next iteration. It is not willing to accommodate any changes. That's why it's a waterfall. Once the water has passed from this layer, if I spill some water here, once it has passed this layer, it can never go back because it has passed through that layer, and now it is in the coding layer. Once you code for it, you test it, again maintain it. So all of these SDLC lifecycle phases, all of these phases are same in waterfall as well as agile, but there are a few things which will lead us to agile. Agile, by definition, is agile. Agile is it's dynamic, and changes can more easily be incorporated in an agile environment. So if you just look at this guy, if you just look at those two images, they say a lot. So you have waterfall process wherein you understand the client's needs, you design for it, then you will start building the software, then you deliver the product. Once you are in the designing phase, then you will never go back to your client's requirements. You will ignore it. If he comes back with any new requirements, you will ask him to come at next iteration because you are past client requirement understanding. Once you are building your software, that is your coding, he says, I want to change the design. You will say, because you are in the waterfall model, you will say, I can't accommodate your changes. Now, let me release the product with whatever approvals you have given, and then I will come back to whatever changes you said in my next iteration, that is next month. Now I am already started with your current design. But that is not the case in any real-time scenario. Real-time scenario, your product design changes, and sometimes it changes just before production. When you are going to production, just a few days before it, not absolutely 1 day or 2 days before it, just a week or a week, is 8 to 10 days before it, before you go to production. There can be a design change. Changes are very common, and that's how software works. Look at how agile process looks like. It understands, it designs. If at all there is a design change, it again starts understanding it and then designing it. If at all there is another change, it will keep on understanding and designing and incorporating whatever the client says whenever he says. I can even, when I am delivering it, I can even then be designing and building. Design what? Design, when will it happen? When is delivery happening here in waterfall? Here. So even at this phase, even at the delivering phase, if there is a design change, I am ready to incorporate it. So there is nothing like any rigid process which I will follow in Agile. Agile is dynamic. So whenever you're working on an Agile project, it's more dynamic. It is more into understanding the client and incorporating whatever the client says into your current process. So it is more client oriented. That's why you see since the past at least 10 years, I have only worked on agile projects. So it's nothing like I have come across even once on a waterfall model. I always have worked on agile processes. So it's a very famous process. 99% of the projects out there are agile. They don't follow any other model. Within agile, you have some other process like Scrum. We'll speak about that as well because that is the methodology which is adapted. You have agile, you have Scrum. What is agile? What is Scrum? We will come to that. But essentially, understand agile is a pretty famous process to build your software development lifecycle. It has many advantages using. Essentially, the client has many advantages using agile as well as the developer. It is not just like the client. It is from the developer's perspective as well. It is more developer friendly. How is it developer friendly? Why does it give control to the developer? I'll come to that. How does the developer life become easy when he is using Agile? I'll come to that. But essentially, understand Agile has many of the functionalities and processes in place than the waterfall process. This is what was used previously. Um, 10 years back, waterfall was very famous. They did not have anything called as Agile. This was all done over time of adapting Agile into the culture of software development by a person. We'll come to that. But just understand, it's a very famous process of using Agile. So that's about your waterfall model.